Hi, everyone. Happy to be back here and seeing everybody back in the building. Obviously, hoping everybody enjoyed their summer. It was a good summer for me personally. It was a good summer also for our staff and I think our organization. And happy with our off season. I think it's natural in the business to lose players every season the way that it goes, but happy with the positions we were able to fill and the players we were able to bring in. I think give us lots of talent, very competitive people, and lots of versatility throughout our lineup. And that really, I would say, includes the goaltending position, where I think we got a really good mix of talent and experience and very highly motivated people. So excited for that group to come in here. And with all those additions, I see a lot of competition here as we start training camp. There are positions available, and there will be some opportunity and fluctuation for players to compete in camp for spots. So I'm excited to see that play out as we get going here. I expect it to be highly competitive throughout the preseason. But certainly for me, I have total belief in our group and the steps that we've taken and how our players individually have grown, how we've grown as a staff and as an entire group with our players. So that belief to me is there, and we continue to push every day to be at our absolute best and give ourselves every opportunity to compete at the highest level. So that for me is my absolute focus. At the same time, we recognize, of course, the challenge that we have as a group, and we certainly embrace that. I look at it as an incredible opportunity for us to continue to grow as a team and take that head on. For me, my first time here coming back from one season to the next with our entire bench staff intact, and I'm excited for that as well, to have Spencer Carberry and Dean Chanel and Manny Malhotra by my side still on the bench. An opportunity for us to continue to grow as a group as well. It's exciting, and Curtis Sanford comes in as goaltending coach, and he's been a really great fit for us through the offseason. Excited to get going with him at the very same time. So for us, thrilled to really get going here. Our focus as a staff, and certainly my focus as the coach, is to worry about daily improvement every single day. How can we get better? That's it. We're starting over here again in day one of training camp. Tomorrow we hit the ice, and we'll get to work at that. Any questions? Go ahead.
Hi, Sheldon. Can you elaborate on what jobs are available, and do you have a name or a plan for who will play with John and Willie?
Yeah, well, in terms of jobs available, I think obviously, I think when I look at it, I think, Marner, Matthews, and Bunting, we look at as a group that's absolutely going to play together. Though I think if you know me by now, what you'll see tomorrow on day one of camp is probably going to be the furthest thing, perhaps, of what we might look like on opening day. But it gives us an opportunity throughout this preseason to try different things for what inevitably may occur in terms of injuries or players moving around throughout the season. So we'll get different looks at things as we get going. In terms of John and Will, I think that's right away is a position that's available, and guys can compete for that. Obviously, at different times, we separated John and Will, and we'll look to explore that as well and see what that looks like. I think when you look at players like Yarn Krok that has come in here, he's got incredible versatility. He can play multiple positions, not unlike Kerfoot in the sense that he can move around and play different spots. So now have a right-handed player that can do that. That gives us lots of options. Obviously, Obe Kubel coming in, he's another guy that established himself and coming off of winning a Stanley Cup. How can he compete and work to go? So I think a lot of positions, for us, will focus around our bottom six and how that comes together. And I'm excited. To me, this is the most depth and most options that I've had coming into a camp in terms of what that might look like. So excited to see that play out and like what we have available to us there. But certainly even, as you talked about, up on the line with John, I think there's an opportunity for players to compete there too.
Hey, Sheldon.
I'm sorry, I might have missed. There was might have been a second part, but I got it. Good. Sorry.
Hey, Sheldon. Good to see you again. From where do you draw your confidence that one or both your goalies can rebound this season after the years they had last year?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, both players have incredible talent, so that's the first thing. So there's great foundation there. Second thing is both guys have been in our facility here for quite some time, putting in the work, seeing how they operate. In particular, Matt Murray who obviously I know well from my time spent with him in Sault Ste. Marie, but first time as a pro, and to see how he's grown and how he takes care of himself and how he goes about his business with incredible confidence himself, despite what might have happened here in recent years. Obviously, his success that he's had in Pittsburgh and winning the Stanley Cup and winning the big game, be it Game 7s or be it, clinching Stanley Cup and getting it done, that gives him incredible confidence. You can see that as he moves around the building and he's just going about his business. I think that's incredibly important, but it's the foundation of the talent and the preparation and the motivation that those guys have coming in here. Ilya Samsonov is an incredible talent that we think has got more to give in terms of how he competes on a daily basis and how he can be pushed and challenged. Yet at the same time, he's a guy that took on the President Trophy winner in the playoffs in the first round last year, and to me went toe to toe with them. So those guys are going to push one another. I think they're both going to challenge for the net, and I think you'll see us split a lot of the duties throughout the season. But of course, it's something that'll be monitored daily and evaluated daily in terms of who gets the net there.
So just to follow up, then, you're not necessarily looking for one of them to emerge as the number one in the next 2 or 3 weeks?
No, I'm not. That's not my focus. My focus is getting these guys ready to play. We're going to need both guys. I mean, right away, we're going to start with a back-to-back to open the season. So that's a big one for us, just to manage the workload of both guys, have them continue to be motivated and challenging one another. And certainly as the season wears on, and you start to prepare to compete in the playoffs, then we'll look for one guy to separate themselves. Certainly with Matt Murray's pedigree in the playoffs, I think that's a good start. But as I mentioned, Ilya Samsonov has got experience being the number one guy in the playoffs as well. So I think we've got 2 really good options there in terms of what their experience has been and what their talent dictates. It's up to us to help support them as a staff and as a team with how we prepare and how we play in front of them.
Hey, Sheldon, earlier Kyle said essentially the regular season goal is to win the division. We know it's a bit of a tougher division this year perhaps than it was last year, but he also said the overall goal is to win the Stanley Cup. What gives you the confidence that you'd be the guy and this is the team to accomplish those things?
Well, I don't know that there's ever been an easy day in this division, certainly in this job since I've been here, but with that said, we've established ourselves as an elite team in the league, and I know we've made some changes through the offseason, but I don't see that changing. Certainly our approach and our confidence isn't changed in any way. In fact, if anything, I think we've got increased depth and increased versatility, and some guys I think that fit in really well into different roles. Within our team, we looked at the addition of David Kampf a year ago and what that brought to us. And now you add in the likes of Ove Kubel and Aston Reese, who's here in camp, and we're excited to bring him into this mix. We've got some really good options there that we think fill those holes. I've talked about the goaltending, obviously, and how we've got great optimism and belief in those guys. But really, it's the foundation of our team is still in place, and the things that we've been through as a team and how we've grown have established ourselves at the top of the league, and we expect to continue to be there, and it's up to us to earn it and prove it starting tomorrow.
Sheldon, you have 2 excellent players in John Tavares and William Nylander, and sometimes they've been part of your second line, and sometimes you've split them up. How do you get these 2 guys who both have high-level talent to be better together?
Well, I think, really, for me, it doesn't have a lot to do with how they interact together necessarily. It's their individual games and making sure that they're both thriving and they're both pushing. That's really my focus. They're both very talented guys. They both had a lot of games and played a lot of hockey together that has been outstanding and dominant. And there will be times where that's the case again. There's times where they go out and they outperform Austin's line, and that's just the reality of it. So we want both lines to be pushing and challenging one another. I think those guys do have the ability to play off of each other very well. It's not always a question for me, as much as the questions come this way, and it may appear that way. It's not always a question for me of those 2. It's how is it affecting the rest of our lineup, and is there benefits for us to have them apart? And that's really what it comes down to for me. So my focus really, especially as we start a new camp here, is to get both players off to a very good start individually and get them rolling. Both have had a strong offseason. both are incredible workers and do all that they can to prepare for the season. But I know that John in particular has had a great offseason here. Obviously, it's a different offseason from what he's been through a year ago here, but he certainly put in a lot of work, and I know I was excited to get going.
Hey Sheldon, what does Nick Robertson need to do to earn a lineup spot out of training camp?
I think it's really just he's going to get opportunity. You know, he's going to play with good players. He's going to get an opportunity to establish himself as a player that can contribute on offense. Obviously, that's who he's been and what he is as a guy that's a difference maker offensively through his time, whether it's in junior hockey, and then he's transferred that on to being, you know, a very productive American League player. So can you make those contributions? It hasn't happened for him in the opportunities that he's had at the NHL level for us to this point. But he's still a young player that we believe in, and another guy that's had a tremendous summer and has worked extremely hard. He's got some games under his belt here at the Prospects Tournament in Traverse City, and you know, expect him to come in and hit the ground running as we get going. So there's, you know, there's the obvious things like the foundation that you need to be a productive player in the NHL, which is you need to be highly competitive, you need to be quick, you need to be physical, you need to be, you know, have attention to detail defensively. That gives you a chance to earn extra ice time and let your offense come through. But he's certainly a guy that's going to get a good look and lots of opportunity in this camp. And then we're just going to sit back and evaluate. Obviously, he is still a very young guy, despite the fact that we've talked about him amongst this group for a few years now. But he is still a very young player, and we're just going to evaluate him like we will everyone else.
Sheldon, you'll be missing some guys at the start of camp. What opportunity might that give you to look at some of the younger players maybe you haven't seen? And the second part would be, do you hope to have most of the team picked by the time you play those last two exhibition games?
Yeah, I mean, whether it's in camp or it's in the regular season, anytime a player gets injured, it does create opportunity for other people. You know, amongst the depth that we added this offseason, you know, we added both Ben and Mete as two guys that we felt very strongly could play in the NHL if needed. And early on here, it's showing that those were valuable adds for us. So both players they're different types of players that bring different types of things, but both have a lot of experience playing in the NHL. So Carl Dahlstrom at the same time played very well for us, and we're really happy with him. He didn't get a lot of looks, obviously. The way our defense went last season, it didn't create a lot of opportunities for Carl, but he's the guy when he was up, he played very well and was a very good player for the Marlies. So we do have options there for sure. And then you look at some of the younger kids coming in, you know, Mac Hollowell's continuing to push as a guy who's been in pro, but there's a number of other guys that are coming in, maybe as first-year pros that we're going to get to know even better. Kral's coming off of a second year. He was a tremendous player in camp for us last year. So we're excited to watch these guys. I think the depth is really, really there for us. And as you say, it's unfortunate to have injuries. You know, obviously Liljegren in particular had such a strong season for us last year. You look at him as a guy that actually, you know, wasn't in the opening night lineup for us a year ago. Went through camp and really just earned his way all the way through and took advantage of opportunities that came his way. And you know, now with his injury situation, it'll create an opportunity for somebody else to get started, and we'll be excited when Timothy's back to full health.
Hi, Sheldon. Kyle was just in here talking about going into the final year of his contract. He likes the accountability aspect of that, does not think it will be a distraction for him. You've been around him for a number of years. What stands out about his ability to maintain focus and deal with pressure?
Well, I think it is. I mean, you use the word focus, so I think that is the big one, is he's just absolutely focused on the end goal, which is to do what he can to help this team succeed and win a Stanley Cup. So that's a sole focus for him, and I have worked with him for quite some time now and been through a lot with him and different experiences in whether it's contract situations or a number of other things that we've been through as we work together, and he's never allowed anything to be a distraction, both to the group or to himself personally in the job that he has to do.